Welcome into the Phoenix Sports Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. I'm your host, Makayla Perkins, and joining me today is Lindsey Smith, Leah Merrall, and Chierstin Susel. I might be biased, but this is probably going to be my favorite episode of this podcast because coincidentally, all of us today are women on this podcast, which just so happened to work out, which kind of makes me excited. I have never talked sports with all three of you at the same time before.
I hope we live up to your expectations.
Don't let me down now. How's everybody doing on this beautiful Wednesday?
Good. Yeah, pretty good. It's been a easy week for me, considering I just came back from vacation. Usually you would think this week would be tough, but surprisingly, it's been pretty calm so far.
Well,
hopefully we keep it that way.
Yeah, at least it's calm. We're all very jealous. You got to spend 2 weeks in Mexico, you lucky duck. Welcome back to Arizona. You came back at a perfect time, though, because last week was a pretty good week for Arizona sports. Everybody won, including the Coyotes, which is kind of shocking.
Yes,
finally. Let's get into our Valley Sports temperature check. Starting with the Cardinals, they surprisingly beat the 49ers with their B squad, pretty much. Kyler Murray was out. So was DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green. They lost Chase Edmonds early. Chierstin, what did that win do for team morale?
Well, first off, it was a big win for the reasons that you just mentioned, but it was also a division win. They swept the series against the Niners. That was a big deal. It was a road victory, and it propelled them to an 8-1 record, which is a really good record, best in the NFL, and a record that the Cardinals have only seen a handful of times in franchise history. So all things considered, this team is feeling pretty good about themselves. Still not going to let it get to their heads, though. They feel like they want to keep the underdog mentality regardless of where they rank or what their record is. But, you know, the way that they bounced back from the Packers loss, they had a lot of time, extra time to let that resonate and sink in. But the way that they were responded and they were shorthanded, I think that told this team what they're made of, all they need to know about themselves, and they're in a really good position right now.
You love to hear it. I know I mentioned some of the injuries. Do you have an update on Kyler or any of the other guys that were out this past week? Where are they at with their return to game status?
Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, Max Garcia. I feel like I might be missing one more. All day today. Aaron Brewer, the long snapper, is going to be out for a few weeks, and they're going to have to bring somebody else in for that position. And AJ Green is still in COVID protocols, but Cliff Kingsbury said today that he's hoping that he's going to return to the team within the next couple of days. So
awesome, love that. They're taking on the Panthers. What are you expecting from that matchup on Sunday?
Well, it's the Cardinals were heavy favorites in this game. They're back at home, and the Panthers have their backup quarterback that's going to be started, which might be better than Sam Darnold with the way that he was playing. But this should be a game that they should be able to win easily. Last I checked, they were about 10-point favorites. So on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. So it should be a good game, and they're going to certainly be wanting to take care of business because they've got the Seahawks up next. So
absolutely. Well, there you have it for the Cardinals. Speaking of winning, the Suns, they are on a 5-game win streak.
Yes.
They are taking on Portland tonight. Lindsey, what are you expecting from that matchup?
Well, hopefully a W, and we can extend this win streak to 6 straight. I mean, that would be amazing. The Suns, earlier this season, they lost to the Trailblazers by 29 points, which I'm sure that one stung just a little bit. So hopefully they kind of enter tonight's game with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because of that. And then, just to keep things going. It's good to see. Unfortunately, I missed out on most of that win streak, but it's good to see that this team is kind of clicking again and finding that rhythm that we all kind of expected them to have from the jump.
Yeah.
But it just took a little bit of time. No big deal. At least they're there. That's all that matters.
You're expecting the trajectory to keep going forward. Obviously, the rocky start, it was kind of like a finals hangover, but now it seems like they're back to their ways.
And listen, I'm sure there will be ebbs and flows of the regular season. As always, it's not often that a team can just coast through a regular season. Right. But I'm glad to see everyone's kind of finding their rhythm again. Unfortunately, tonight, DeAndre Ayton is still out. Landry Shamet is doubtful. So we'll kind of see Landry later on this evening if something changes there, which is kind of a bummer that DeAndre has been out for. I think this is his third
tank
game. I know, but Frank the Tank, man. Frank Kaminsky has been shown up big. And that's one of my favorite things about sports is, when an injury does occur, like, you don't ever want anybody to get hurt, but it allows for the next man up to kind of have an opportunity to do something really cool and create a neat storyline. And I love Frank. I think he's an amazing guy, a great player. And I love that he's been able to stay ready and come in this time when they needed him and have an impact on this team, and a positive one at that. So we'll see tonight how everything shapes out, but I am confident. I believe the Suns they have a 6.5 favorite against the Trailblazers tonight. So
not bad.
Yeah.
We all love # Frank for MVP. Just trying to appease Espo, so he
Kaminsky go. Open for business.
Well, we can finally continue the winning train right on down to Coyotes Town because the Coyotes finally won their first game.
It might end there. I'm just gonna put it out there.
It took 12 tries. It was their 12th game of the season.
12th game, yeah.
They finally beat the Seattle Kraken to get their first win of the year.
Yes.
Leah, how did it feel watching the Coyotes finally win a game?
Felt like something I hadn't felt in a long time. I mean, if they had lost that game, they would have beaten the franchise record for worst starts in franchise history, 12 games without a victory. But they just simply tied the record. So that's not the kind of record you want to break. So funny you said, bring on the tank. In my head, I was like, oh yeah, like the tank, like the Coyotes tanking. That's where my brain went immediately. So yeah, matchup tonight against Minnesota. Minnesota's second in the division. Coyotes are last. So Minnesota,
that'll be a tough one.
Yeah, Minnesota's been playing really well. So
not looking too good.
There's the games on the calendar. You can say maybe there's a chance. There's others you don't think so. And I don't know how I feel about tonight.
Am I allowed to say that I really like the name Seattle Kraken?
It's an amazing name.
Love it.
They have
their whole branding is incredible.
Yeah, they did a really good job with that. Like the branding, their vibe. Like I am a big fan of how they put that team and that organization together. As far as like a marketing purpose, you know what I mean? I don't know anything going on behind the scenes or how the organization is run or anything like that.
Like even when they unveiled the name and everything like that, they did a great job with their videos and stuff like that. So I'm excited that they're a team.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of teams that embrace a little bit of edginess. Because I think the traditional vibe that most teams went with originally was like family friendly, you know what I mean? And that's great because you want to have a family friendly environment, but I love a little bit of edginess, you know? The Kings have that. So I'm glad that the Knights have it a little bit too.
Yeah, the Knights are great. They're so fun.
I would say Carolina too.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I think it's great. It's fun for hockey.
Yeah, for sure.
One bright spot so far in the season, however, that I don't think any of us were anticipating, Vejmelka is looking like a freaking brick wall in net.
Yes.
How cool is it to watch him kind of step up and carry this team?
Super unexpected. I mean, the goaltender situation going into the season, none of the goalies that were on the Coyotes last year returned, which is really rare. So all new goaltenders, and nobody really knew what to expect. And Carter Hutton is currently on the injured reserve list, so Vejmelka has had a chance to step up. This is his first season playing in the North American game, so he's only played in the Czech Republic before, so that's an adjustment, but he's probably been the brightest spot of this Coyote season so far, just to see him succeed. He gives the team a chance to win every night. The team just hasn't been matching it with providing offense and defense, but, you know, He'll get the team some wins this season for sure.
Those are the stories I'm talking about. Like that's what you
exactly
when you're in a situation like that. If you have to be in a situation like that, finding those bright spots and seeing people succeed when they probably wouldn't have had the opportunity prior to. I love those.
Yeah,
I gotta imagine that that's sort of a morale boost as well when your team stinks that bad. If there's a guy day in and day out that first off, nobody really had much belief in. That's consistent, shows up as a bright spot. It's a little bit of a motivator when you've got a guy in net that's at least putting you in a position to win some games. So
right. Hopefully everyone else steps up in the same way. It's like,
hey,
okay, if this guy can do it, I got to show up too.
Exactly.
Absolutely. It's always nice when you see the Arizona teams succeeding. I think it kind of makes our jobs easier too.
Exactly. I can attest to that.
Yeah. I will say my first season in the NBA, I obviously reached out to a lot of women who worked in the NBA for some advice and things. And the one that stuck out the most to me was, hey, I know you work for the Suns, but let me tell you, if you can learn to cover a losing team, when they start winning, it'll be like a cakewalk. So this is just you learning how to enjoy it when your team does finally get to win.
Well, poor Leah, she has had to come up with very many creative ways to cover this Coyotes team. But she's done a great job. If you guys haven't checked out the PHNX Coyotes podcast, you must go check it out. Same with the rest of the podcasts that everybody else is on up here. They are all phenomenal at what they do. That was our Valley Sports temperature check. And before we get into our topic of the day, got to tell you guys about DraftKings Sportsbook. Attention all hoopers, all you hoopers out there. I feel so bad, awkward saying that. Not the type of person to say hooper. Are you ready to net some free bets? Now you can bet on any NBA game this week with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers who bet just $1 on either team to score can win $100 in free bets. When a team scores, you score. I feel like scoring in basketball happens a lot, so
shouldn't be
a few times a game.
That seems like a pretty solid.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You should absolutely do it.
DraftKings Sportsbook customers can also get skin in the game with new same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. And best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. That's one of my favorite parts of the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PHNX. Bet $1 on either team to score and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code PHNX this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 and up only, Arizona only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. All right, how about we get into our main topic of the day? We're going to play a little game called Owner, GM, Coach, Broadcaster. And I feel like this is a really fun way to talk about current players on our Arizona teams and how they would fit into different roles if they were given a chance. So I want to know which current players on each of your teams you think would make the best owner, GM, coach, and broadcaster. I think we should start with the Cardinals. Chierstin.
Are we going to list all of them first, or should we do it by position?
I think we should go by team and tell me each of your selections.
Okay.
Right
off the bat?
Yeah, hit me with it.
Okay.
I guess we should start with the top, right? For management's sake. So who would you think would make the best owner of the Arizona Cardinals? That's a current player.
So owner, I would say if Larry was a player, it'd be Larry because he has ownership experience. But after that, I would say DeAndre Hopkins because he negotiated his own dang deal, studied himself, got himself like I think the top deal for any receiver ever. So he was really good at it and sat there with Steve Keim and was able to pull that off, which is a scary thing in and of itself. And he's also like probably the most business savvy than anyone on that team. He is all about, he's got like all sorts of different companies in his hands and anything from, real estate to, clothing to nonprofits to, you name it, he's a part of it. And so, and that started at a super young age for him. So I think that he would probably be the best owner.
That's a great answer. I did not know that he did all of those things like outside of playing football.
Oh my goodness. DeAndre Hopkins is probably more business minded than like
Didn't he come up with his own cereal? Like he did all of that himself too.
Yeah, the cereal thing. So I did look into it a little bit. I believe like Josh Allen, Bills quarterback, and like one other player also with this company have their own cereal. So I don't know if he like was the one that like originally came up with it, but like that's another thing. Like he has so many business ventures, it's insane. He's really impressive and extremely intelligent. I don't know where he finds the time.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I feel like most of his time is taken up, but the fact that he can do that is incredible and just speaks to his time management skills, which I could definitely use a little bit of.
Same.
I think that's a great option.
Yeah, that's great. And
Thanks, guys.
Good job, Chierstin. You killed it. I actually lied. I think we should do each position for each
I
team.
agree.
Yeah,
I think that would be
sorry.
great.
I
Yeah.
messed that up. That was on me.
Oh my
All right,
goodness.
Leah, hit us with your nomination
All right.
for which player would be the best owner of the Coyotes.
So this one was tough. I collaborated with Craig and Petey, my co-hosts on the Coyote show, and we came up with Louis Erickson. He's new to the team this year, but he's been in the league a long time, really experienced player. So this is not enough to buy a team, but his career earnings are $61,666,870. So it's a start.
Wait, how many million?
$61 million.
I mean, compared to the rest of the roster, I feel like he probably has the most lifetime earnings.
Yeah, he's been
saved
around
up.
for a long time. He's a veteran.
I don't know, maybe Kessel.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Kessel's got some
Kessel.
good.
And it's so funny, and we talked about Kessel because he literally looks like he would be an owner somehow. Like that was like my runner-up choice.
Are you saying he doesn't look like an athlete?
I'm saying that he looks like an owner.
Boss vibes.
Yeah,
Yes.
boss
Go with
vibes.
that.
But also another thing about Louis Erickson is he's been a finalist for the Lady Byng Trophy, which is for the player to have exhibited the best type of sportsmanship and gentlemanly conduct. And I feel like
That's what you want from an owner.
That's what you want from an owner. And, I just think he has a quiet presence. He looks the part. He's been in the NHL for a long time. He's from Sweden originally, so he has that international vibe. And I just feel like he would make a great NHL owner.
That's a great answer. I love that as well. Good job, Leah. Lindsey, hit us with your son's nomination.
All right, my nomination is going to be Diana Taurasi. Not technically a son, but within the Sons Mercury organization. So for starters, she's the only person that I know of within that organization that has expressed multiple times her interest in owning a team or being a part owner of a team. And that, when people ask her what her post-playing career is going to be, it's always like broadcaster, coach, and she's like, no, I want to own the damn thing. So I think she would be great because she wants to. But in addition to that, she's an incredibly intelligent person, just in general terms, but also basketball-wise. I think she would put a lot of focus on putting the right people around her. And first and foremost, creating a winning team and environment, but also equally as important, creating a profitable organization. I also think she'd be at the forefront with her organization of, social justice and doing the right things and being a champion for change where it's needed, not just within sports, but in life in general. Love that out of sports organizations personally, because sports is a leader in a lot of things culturally, and we've seen it with the W a lot. Those women are constantly out there fighting the good fight and making change in this world. And so having somebody who's already had that experience at the helm of an organization would be chef's kiss. Plus, whenever the media did get her in front of some cameras, she'd be hilarious. And we love that.
It doesn't help, or it certainly helps, rather, that she's so well respected.
Yes.
It wouldn't be like...
I was just going to say that. Like, there's
Yeah.
not one single person on this planet who wouldn't want to play for Diana Taurasi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, she's
Exactly.
incredible.
Yeah. She probably could be at any one of the positions that we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, some of these picks that I have, I'm like, well, I guess I could throw them here or here or here.
Yeah.
Kind of fit in everywhere. But yeah, so Diana is my pick for owner.
That is a great pick. I am actually going to do Diamondbacks, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah, of course.
If anybody does not know, I am a huge baseball nerd. I love baseball, so I feel like we need some Diamondbacks representation. So I'll go ahead and do it. My nomination for the owner of the Diamondbacks, who's a current player, would actually be Meryl Kelly. So he is one of the Diamondbacks starting pitchers. He spent some time in Korea in the Korean Baseball League out there. And I feel like he has the type of personality that you need for a baseball owner. So he would be the type that would let his general manager and his vice president of baseball operations make all the decisions. And he would kind of just be there as an overseer who would, just make sure everything's running correctly, but let the people who are in the positions do their jobs correctly.
Very important trait.
Super important. I am scarred by owners who don't do that. So I was
trust the people you put in place that they're going to do the job you hired them to do.
Absolutely.
And if you don't think that they will, then why did you hire them in the first place?
Exactly. And Meryl's definitely that type of person that would do that. He also has connections. Obviously all the international connections are really important in baseball when you are scouting talent from other countries that don't come from the Americans' college system or high school system. So it's always good to have those international connections. And I think more than anything, the selling point for him is just that he would let the people who he hires do their jobs. So
that's a big one.
I'm going to go with Meryl Kelly for the owner of the Diamondbacks. That is my
it.
nomination. All right, let's do GM. Go back to the Cardinals. Chierstin, who do you have as a player who would make a great GM?
All right, so I'll preface it with saying that I did have a hard time narrowing it down to one because I do feel like the Cardinals have a lot of really intelligent, well-respected players that I feel like could potentially become a general manager. But I've been riding this train all season long. Makayla, I think you agree with me. I'm just going to go with Jordan Hicks. Yep. Because he's an absolute leader. He's very intelligent. In order to play, Mike Backer and have be the quarterback of the defense, you've got to be extremely intelligent and have a high football IQ. And then, he obviously shows that he is able to be level-headed and mature in situations that are uncomfortable. And he stood his ground, even when speaking behind the scenes, he stood his ground in terms of I'm going to take the high road. I'm going to handle this situation that was uncomfortable with the general manager and with my teammates and remain respected throughout it all, and took the high road that I feel like most players wouldn't. And we've just been singing his praises all season long, but I feel like he's a guy that would show respect to every player, regardless of the situation, and is just super intelligent. So I'm going with Jordan Hicks.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I completely agree with you. I'm a huge Jordan Hicks fan. I think he's a great football player, but an even better person. And so you can't really go wrong when you have someone like that leading your organization and dealing with players. So great pick. Leah, hit us with your Coyotes pick.
All right, so for GM for Coyotes, I picked Andrew Ladd, again, new to the Coyotes this year, not new to the NHL. He's an NHL veteran, drafted in 2004. He's been on a number of teams: Carolina, Chicago, Atlanta, Winnipeg, Islanders, Coyotes. So he's been around. And he's won 2 Stanley Cups. He won a cup with Carolina and with the Blackhawks as well. And I think just having been in all of those positions and all those teams, you get to be a part of a lot of different situations and see how different teams are built. Atlanta moved to Winnipeg, so he's been part of a relocation. And he's just like a mature leader. I mean, the Coyotes brought him in. He got an A on his chest immediately before he even played a game. He's looked to as that veteran presence. So when I think of, a GM and somebody who would, know how to construct a team based on all of his experience in the NHL and just his, personality as well, I think he'd be a great pick. And I also was curious, I looked it up, of the 32 NHL teams, 23 of the current GMs had a pro career. So it's a common thing, and I could for sure see Andrew Ladd being a NHL GM.
I'm so glad we did this because I don't know any of these people that you're talking about, and so getting to know them through your lens is so interesting.
I could chime in on the conversation instead of just nodding my head. It's just how it is this year.
I know, all the new faces makes it so hard.
Well, and it's tough too when your main job is to cover a different team. Like for me, we compete. Like we're both playing tonight.
Yeah.
Like I can't watch your games,
Yeah.
You know what I mean, as often as I would like. So, but that's why we have you, so we can go watch your shows and get all up to date on everything.
I feel more invested in these players now because I think they're so much cooler now that I know that they've
exactly.
done some cool things. So
Totally.
Love that. All right, Lindsey.
So this one was a tough one. I'm not going to lie. So Chris Paul could have definitely been a candidate for this, but I didn't want to use players twice. So we're saving Chris Paul for a later position. So for this one, I'm going to go with Devin Booker. I know he was instrumental in recruiting Chris Paul to the team. I think he's got an incredibly high basketball IQ. You know, his dad has experience as an agent now and moving into that space later on in his life and his career. So I think Devin could absolutely do it. The one thing that I would be a little bit maybe hesitant about is I don't know that I would say Devin is a natural born leader, but I don't know that you also need that from a general manager. From a general manager, I think you need somebody who has a very high basketball IQ, is good at the behind the scenes negotiating and working with players and convincing them to come to your team. I think Devin has those two things. If this was a coaching option, I think the natural born leader thing would be a little bit of a bigger red flag maybe. But I think he would be good in a general manager role and kind of stay behind the scenes. And again, I know I mentioned this with Diana, putting the right people around him, you know, those analytic brains, the people who are the numbers guys, like you can tell he's already done that within his career. So I think he would do the same thing if he moved into a general manager role.
You bring up a good point about like the leader. Like I've never, ever talked about Steve Keim's leadership ability.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Although I feel like James Jones probably has a little bit of that more so in terms of those qualities than Steve Keim if you're just comparing the two. But yeah, you're probably right. It means probably leadership
means
qualities.
A little bit
means
less. In the general manager role. But at the same time, I do think having a little bit of that, which Devin absolutely does, I think he's more of a lead by example. And you can't really be an example in a leadership role, whereas a teammate, you can absolutely be an example.
Right.
So I think that's the difference in his leadership styles. It's not more of a vocal or a communication thing. It's more like, I'm going to show you by doing instead of telling. And as a GM, you can't really do the job as much, you know?
Right.
So
that's a good pick. Love it. All right. My pick for GM current Diamondbacks players, I think I'm going to go with Nick Ahmed. Nick Ahmed is a great human being again. I know we talked about that a lot, but he really is a solid human being. I feel like a lot of the players on the Diamondbacks roster respect him in a way that would indicate he would make a good leader of an organization. And so I think he is obviously a leader in the locker room. He's been there for quite some time now on the Diamondbacks roster. He's also extremely analytical. He is one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball, and I know that he makes a lot of adjustments to his playing game based off of analytics. And I know, too, that when Zach Greinke was here, Zach Greinke is like a baseball nerd. Like, he knows the game of baseball in and out. He is constantly looking at stats. Like, Zach Greinke had suggestions for draft picks based off of their high school careers for Torey Lovello when they were going into the draft. So, and I know Nick and Zach talked about that a lot. So obviously Nick has that analytical piece, which is super important in baseball. Obviously knowing stats and knowing numbers is important for any general manager position, but even more so in baseball because there's just so much of it. So I think Nick would be a great general manager. He's very laid back, very easygoing. So I think he's an easy person to get along with. And I think he would make a really good baseball GM.
I think Nick, and it's interesting because now I've got myself thinking of like, okay, what's the difference between like what qualities do a general manager do they truly need? But I think Nick does a lot of like missions trips overseas and a lot of outreach thing. I think a lot of, like one theme I feel like a lot of us have already chosen for like people for these positions, like they've all got like one thing in common so far, and they're all out in the community in some way and are giving back in some way. And I don't know that that's a quality that a general manager needs, but I certainly would, you know, would like high character people in high positions. And so I feel like we all agree on that.
Well, I also think to that point, because as a general manager, you're having the hard conversations with players at times, right? If you're potentially going to trade somebody or when a trade happens, you are the representation for your organization as far as your, what's the word I'm looking for? Shoot, I just had a brain fart. I did this the other day when I see, like, just your reputation. Yeah. You're the representation for your reputation.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're blindsiding players and players are constantly being like, oh, my GM came to me and told me I wasn't on the trading block at all, and then all of a sudden I found out on Twitter, like that reputation follows you for a long time. And then it makes other players question, like, do I want to come play for this organization? So to have compassion within who you are, to be able to have those conversations and explain and, you know, maintain those relationships, because what if the player wants to come back or you want them to come back at a later time?
Well, your culture is way beyond just your players on your court, your head coach. I always believe that it starts at the top and trickles down. And so when you're talking about building a culture that people want to come work for, people want to come play for, that has a good reputation here in the Valley. We've seen examples from both ends of the spectrum on this one.
Mm-hmm.
You always want high character people in those positions for those reasons. So yeah.
And like you were saying too, it's a huge selling point in free agency when players are looking to go to organizations. Like a lot of the times, like the connections that they have with the players and like what they've heard about the reputation of the team sells them on a place to go. And so
or detours them.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have players that are advocating for your general manager, for your owner, saying this is the place to be, they treat us so good, you know, that's going to be like crucial to a team's functionality and just operating as a team in general. So it's a good point. Chierstin, who would make a great coach that is a current player? I feel like there's a lot of options.
Oh, there's a lot of options, but I have one just that is just fitting for today because Cliff Kingsbury spoke this morning and mentioned that Colt McCoy is the only guy that he knows of that has dinner periodically with the coaches because he considers himself a coach. We've seen...
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, we've seen... you probably saw my tweet. Because it was a super interesting tidbit on him. And we've also seen the coaching role that he's taken on specifically with Kyler. And so Colt was brought in for a multitude of reasons. One, because he's, as we saw on Sunday, a great option as a backup quarterback on the field. But then also because he's super intelligent, he's a veteran, he's got a humble personality, and he's willing to take on that backup role, which includes a lot of coaching. And so I think he would be a tremendous head coach. And I'm sticking to it. Although you're right. I feel like there's probably multiple people on the Cardinals that can definitely coach and have the qualities of a head coach.
I think I'm interested to see Colt McCoy's post-playing career, what he does after he's done being a player, because I really do feel like he actually could be a coach in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
He's so talented.
And he's been with a lot of teams, too. I mean, he's been put in a lot of positions and learned from a lot of different organizations, head coaches, other quarterbacks, offensive coordinators, etc. So much so that he's still in the league after, I think, 12 seasons or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of people that was like, wait, Colt, that outside of Arizona, like, wait, Colt's still in the league? And there's a reason why, as a backup quarterback, kind of a journeyman type of player, that you are able to stay in the league for so long. And I would say a lot of that has to do with just leadership intelligence. And you're going to make whoever your starting quarterback or that quarterback room in general better by your presence.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully he'll be a coach someday. That'd be cool to watch. Leah, who is your nomination for coach?
All right, I'm finally bringing in someone everyone knows.
Yay!
So my nomination for coach is Lawson Krause.
Okay, interesting.
He's makes a good personality. He gets along with everyone, happy, but he's also a gritty player, competitive. He was a high draft pick, but he paid his dues in the American Hockey League. And, looking at the turnover of this current Coyotes team, he's kind of now in that leadership position, having been a consistent member of the team, which is rare for this team right now. But in saying that, I think what's really important in hockey, especially with coaches, is as a player, you want to play for someone who would do the same. Like as a coach, you can't ask a player to go out and fight or, take big minutes and do all these things if you haven't been in that position yourself. And that's one thing about Lawson Krause that I feel like, just based on the type of player he is, and he's, skilled and scores goals and gets points, but he also, will stand up for his teammates and take hits and, just all the things that he's a well-rounded player. And I think that would translate well to coaching a team and asking that of his own players. And then, just being a likable guy. I mean, I think the way coaching has changed. It used to be, old school hardball, and I think he can, still hold everyone to a high standard, but also have a relationship.
He's got an Instagram for his dog.
Exactly. He's so likable. He's so relatable. So I just feel like players would like playing for him because he would connect with everyone on an individual basis.
We've seen it. I mean, obviously with Ted Lasso and Monty Williams, like players want to play for coaches now who can relate to them as human beings first, and then athletes second. Because not everybody is motivated the same way.
They're like very similar.
No, just in general speaking, they're very similar kind of personalities. Where
Gotcha. Because Cliff compared himself to Ted Lasso.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, then Cliff's right in there too.
Add him to the list.
I love that. So for me, I'm sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're done, Leah. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Moving on.
I just set her up so well. She was riding the wave.
I picked Chris Paul, obviously. I do think Chris Paul could have been a really good GM as well, but this year in the GM survey, the GMs voted him as the current player who they think will be the best head coach one day. So obviously had to pick Chris Paul
There you go.
as a great potential head coach one day. Chris Paul is a natural born leader, in my opinion. He's got an incredibly high basketball IQ and knowledge in general. He served as the president of the NBPA. Prior to him being the president, he was on the executive committee for 11 years. He just has a lot of experience in leadership type roles, basketball wise and others. And I think he would make a really great head coach because I think he is that kind of person. Let's be honest. He does have a reputation of being a little bit hard sometimes on his teammates, but I think as a coach, he could maybe navigate that a little bit better because he's not in the game. He's not maybe feeling that emotion as much as leading from the sidelines versus leading in a game. I know a lot of people have talked about him being just kind of a sounding board, whether it's coming to him for advice or just to vent a little bit, get some frustration off their chest. And I think that would be a great characteristic of a coach.
I think you could consider him already sort of
Absolutely.
like a mini coach
Yeah.
on the team for sure.
Yeah.
And he elevates. He already is coaching. He took Devin Booker under his wing. We all know that DeAndre Ayton sort of felt like he wanted to elevate his game when Chris Paul became a part of the team. And,
Chris Paul's done a ton for the players on this team.
A ton. And he has really good, what do you call it? Perspective.
Yeah.
And I think, even Monty Williams said at one point in his career, he was super harsh and at times unrelatable. And he had to and he was harsh with Chris Paul. And he had to sort of, through the years, realize this is the way, guys want to be coached. This is the way guys don't want to be coached, and had to grow into that role. And Chris has the awareness, I think, where he would be able to realize what's working, what's not, despite how he is on the court. Like, I think he's just that intelligent and has that much awareness. And you have to in order to hold the positions that he's held. And be respected the way that he is as a player within the organization and within the league. So Chris Paul for sure.
Yeah.
I hope. Doesn't he? And he's had I forget who it was. Was it Devin Booker that he had over to just train and stuff like that? I think he does that anyways with
different players,
up and
teammates.
coming athletes, even not even teammates, but just guys that are about to enter the draft or young in their careers. He'll have them over, get to know them, get the chance to play with Chris Paul. And I swear it was Devin Booker that kind of did something like that with Chris way back when, but maybe it was somebody else.
I don't remember.
So he already does all the right things that
Right.
a coach would.
And when you
do.
say leader in Suns, I automatically think of Chris Paul as the
Totally.
first person that comes to mind.
Yeah.
So
And he's definitely an extension, like you said, of coach out there on the floor. And then just the last little thing is he's super tactful with his words, and he knows how to handle the media already and answer tough questions with poise. So I think that's an important kind of role as well of the coach, because you're constantly in front of the media more so than all the players are, because you talk every single day, every single game, multiple times, sometimes a day. So that's something that you'd have to be very comfortable with as a coach. And
He's had a lot of practice having
that.
to tactfully answer
Yes.
questions, unfortunately, for
Yes.
him. But that was a great pick. My pick for coach for Diamondbacks, I think it's obvious. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I would definitely pick David Peralta. He is a hilarious human being who I think
sign me up to play for David
Yes,
Peralta.
he has the best personality. He's spent his entire major league career with the Diamondbacks. And for those of you that don't know, David Peralta actually played independent baseball. He was an independent baseball player and also worked at McDonald's at the same time to make ends meet for his family. So he has grinded his entire life to get to where he is today. Obviously, he's already a leader in the clubhouse for the Diamondbacks. He has been on the Diamondbacks for the longest out of anybody there that's left. And I think, is a leader in the clubhouse, and I think he would be a great coach. He knows how to motivate guys. He knows how to talk to guys in a way to get them to perform or to make them feel better or whatever it might be. And I think he has the respect of a lot of people in the Diamondbacks organization and is just an overall great human being. He also has a great personality, which I think is always great when you have a baseball coach, because sometimes baseball is a little boring. I'll admit it. It's a little long, a little slow. And so you need someone that can interject that energy into the clubhouse and get guys to get motivated. So I would go with David Peralta.
He has like this zest for life too that's almost contagious, or maybe it's a zest for baseball, but either way, if you've got somebody that's like showing up to the clubhouse, win or lose, as your manager, and he's the guy that's going to set the tone really for morale, etc. Peralta is like, you don't get much better. I mean, he's like the epitome of all of that.
Yeah.
Plus, I feel like when you have a story like his, anybody who is at the helm of your team who has a really inspiring story, I feel like that always helps too, because you look at that person and you immediately have so much respect for what they've been able to do and what they've been able to accomplish despite, hardships in their life. So those are the type of the people who can bring some perspective when you are going through a losing streak or a tough season or a tough decade, whatever it may be, and turn to and be like, okay, yes, if this person can make it through what they went through, we as a team can make it through this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's another huge piece about David Peralta being a good coach is like about what makes baseball a difficult sport is the continual development aspect piece of it. So, when you're drafted either out of high school or in through college and you go through the minor system, could be 4 or 5 years before you even get to the big leagues. And that entire time you're developing as a baseball player and as a human, but then also, you're doing all of that as a professional athlete, but also not getting paid a lot, having to live in horrible conditions. It's all it's a horrible situation for minor league players. But, when they get to the big leagues, finally, it's a really hard adjustment period for them. And a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to go from, spending 4, 5, 6 years in minor league baseball to finally being a major league baseball player. And I think David Peralta can really relate to those young players that if you were a coach would be on his team to help them adjust to that period and to help give them advice on, how to make that switch. And I think that would be a good selling point as David as a coach. So
totally, that's a great pick.
Thanks. Chierstin, round us out with your broadcaster picks.
So picks
or pick, single pick is fine.
I only wrote one down. So again, I think it's a position that a lot of Cardinals players could hold, but I'm just gonna go with Justin Pugh because I don't know if you guys know much about him. He's an offensive lineman, so I mean, maybe not everybody knows much about him, but he's got a great personality. He's super fun, super light. There's something about offensive linemen in general where they're typically like the funniest guys on the team. And he kind of reminds me of a Joe Thomas type of guy, a former Browns offensive lineman that is now a really successful broadcaster. And so I'm going to go with him, but I also feel like Justin Pugh and DJ Humphries should have their own show.
Oh my God, that would be hilarious. Hump is a great interview.
So if they could just have their own show, that would instantly be one of my all-time favorites.
They should start a podcast.
They should.
That would be incredible.
Let's get them to join PHNX.
That's actually something that I've noticed that athletes have started doing. Shelby Harris from the Broncos, he's a player there. He has his own podcast. So.
Patrick Peterson has his own.
Yeah, they need to hop on the podcast train.
So even in the NBA, there's so many former players and a handful of current players.
I know, but the weird thing is the current players, because you definitely weren't seeing that like even like 5 years ago where you're like, wait a second, you're still playing, you have your own podcast.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. But the former player, absolutely, it's a natural transition. But
I would subscribe to that podcast so fast.
Justin, Pugh, DJ Humphreys, please start your own pod. We'd love it.
Give Chierstin the credit, but
yeah, you got a subscriber already.
All right, Leah, who is your nomination for a broadcaster?
All right, this was the most obvious one for me of all these. I said Christian Fisher. I mean, he's like the personality on the Coyotes. He's hilarious. Right now there's like a little video series the Coyotes are doing where he just walks around the locker room with like a tiny microphone and asks the players like
a natural.
Yeah, exactly. Just ask them like the other day it was, do you put your Christmas tree up like before or after Thanksgiving? Like just random. He's also
Thank you. Oh my God, I love that for us.
I agree.
You're sane human beings on this podcast today.
Oh my gosh.
To be fair, Halloween decorations go up in September, so don't have me on that one.
But anyway, I mean, yeah, he's just a no-brainer for me. He's also been a guest on the PHNX Coyote show, and he was hilarious on that too. Craig hates ketchup, and Christian like showed up to the interview with a bottle of ketchup like in the camera, like just funny. So I just think, when you're watching hockey, and especially for a color commentator, not necessarily like play-by-play, but that would just add so much fun. And I think, he has the personality for it. So that's my choice.
I love color commentators who can bring fun. Like knowledge, because that's their role, right? Is to break things down, bring the more extensive knowledge. But I also love it when they can bring fun. And like, it's a little different when a former player is like ripping on a current player because it's not as mean, I guess. And it's a little more playful. So I love those.
Yeah.
That's a
Craig
good one.
doesn't like ketchup.
Craig does not like ketchup.
Well then.
You should ask him
I
about
also
it.
don't like ketchup. Sorry.
That's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, that could be a whole podcast.
I like ketchup just not on my hot dog. Anyways, that was a great pick. Christian Fisher is hilarious. I could watch any digital segment that he does through the Coyotes any day. He's awesome at that. So good pick, Leah. How are you feeling, Linz? Who are you going for with your broadcaster?
I couldn't narrow it down to one. Sorry, so I put together a whole squad.
Is there a sideline reporter in there?
Yes. So
No, but for real.
She's like, yes.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna put Skylar Diggins-Smith and Cam Johnson in the analyst / play-by-play roles, and then Frank Kaminsky is our sideline reporter.
Ooh, good one.
And that's just a traditional broadcast, but outside of the traditional style broadcast, I also think all three of these guys and gals would be amazing at like an NBA Twitter Live kind of broadcast, or even just fun podcasting. Skylar and Cam are extremely thoughtful with their words, and they put a ton of thought just behind not only what they say, but how they say it. And I think that would serve them incredibly well in this position. Frank is obviously hilarious and would bring a ton of personality to any broadcast, which, like I just said, I love that in broadcasts. And then, of course, all three of them are very knowledgeable and would provide great insight as former players. So I think those are my picks.
I like
for
the Frank
broadcasters. So which one?
The Frank pick, I feel like, for sure. Cam Johnson is that's like a no-brainer, and I feel like he's got like a little more of like a serious vibe too. Skylar's already doing the thing,
right?
So we know that she'd be great, and then to like add Frank in there, fantastic.
Yeah, I think honestly you could make, if you brought in a traditional play-by-play person into this broadcast crew, and then you had Skylar and Cam as, there's been a couple times where we've had two analysts on different broadcasts. You could put them in or interchange them every few games, right? And then you have Frank as your sideline, and I just think it would be a solid move.
I love the Skylar pick. She, like Chierstin said, is already doing the thing, but she reminds me a lot of Candace Parker, and I hope that eventually at some point in her career she'll get to do what Candace Parker does on the show with Shaq. So
yeah.
I think that'd be cool.
And I think Skylar, like last year, was, I think, the first time she had ever really dipped her toes into the broadcast. So there were times where I'm like, I can feel that she's maybe a little bit nervous or hesitant, but who isn't in your first kind of situation like that?
And you have like,
who isn't even after your career has been established, right?
Right. But then I think when you start out too, you're like, oh, I want people to take me seriously.
Yeah.
And so you sacrifice some of like the personality aspect of it too, and then you really see people flourish when they're like, listen, I've been doing this for X amount of games, X amount of years, whatever, like I'm confident in it. Like if you don't respect me at this point, it is what it is in this role. You can kick rocks, and then you sort of loosen up a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think she absolutely would. Like I was able to have her on a podcast at one point in time, and she loosened up in that, and she's got a great personality. She's super fun. And I think if she were put in the right setting as a broadcaster, she would excel.
I agree. That was a great pick, Linz. Good job. My pick for broadcasters, I feel like this is hard because like not a lot of people watch baseball, and a lot of people think baseball is boring, which is totally fine. But
I've never said that.
There are some players on the Diamondbacks who have great personalities. I did a broadcast team, so my play-by-play would be Josh Rojas, and then my color would be Carson Kelly. Or sorry, switch it. Carson Kelly would be my play-by-play. Josh Rojas would be my color. Carson Kelly's the catcher. Very good at breaking down plays in baseball. Obviously, as a catcher, he can call pitches and all that good stuff. So he's also really funny too, and has a great personality. So listening to Carson, I think, would be easy. And then Josh Rojas has an incredible personality. He's really funny, and he does a lot of broadcast appearances for the Diamondbacks and radio interviews. So I know he's got a good radio voice, and I think he would be a good pick for the Diamondbacks broadcast. So those are my two nominations.
Can I just say real quick, being a sideline reporter in baseball, I don't even know if they're called sideline reporters, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Close enough.
Because I've never really looked or whatever, would be really difficult for a winning team because they're constantly getting Gatorade dumped on them.
Oh my gosh.
Like every person in that role that I know, Instagram is covered in pictures of Gatorade being dumped on them. And I feel like that would be difficult because I'd be like, now I gotta wash my hair. And can I wear this outfit tonight? Because would Gatorade ruin it?
Well, you gotta like work a little extra money for like hair and clothes into your contract.
Dry cleaning.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Totally.
I feel like I would like it for the first time and maybe after like really big wins, but then like if they're just like dumping Gatorade consistently, I would be so mad. I'd be like, okay, I'm done.
There would be a couple times where it would be great. Yeah, it would be really great to have those celebrations every now and then.
Well, ideally you have somebody on your team, as in like your broadcast team, that's like gonna tell you that it's coming so you can move out of the way.
But it seems like lately in baseball, the goal is to get both the person being interviewed and the interviewer. Like it just seems like that's the goal.
It just wouldn't be the case if it was me.
You just have an umbrella in your pocket and you're like, probably press the buttons.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it would be fun, but yeah.
Great job, guys. Thank you so much for your very well thought out picks. I'm not surprised because I know you all are very good at what you do. So that was awesome to hear all of your picks for which Arizona sport athlete would make the best in each of those roles. Before we wrap this up, I got to tell you always about DraftKings one more time. Make sure you use code PHNX when you sign up at the DraftKings Sportsbook app. If you bet just $1 for any NBA team to score, you will get $100 in free bets, which is obviously a no-brainer situation. Right now, the Suns are 5.5-point favorites against the Trailblazers for tonight. Are you guys taking the Trailblazers or are you going to go with Phoenix? What are you thinking?
I put money on Phoenix all the time. Even when I know they're going to lose, I put money on Phoenix.
There you have it.
I don't do all that, but I do think they're going to win.
Well, at least like free bets from DraftKings or theoretical dollars. I would always take the Suns.
Well, you heard it here first. Lindsey's taking the Suns. So if you take the Suns and they lose, it's Lindsey's fault.
Sorry.
Just kidding.
But if they win, it's also my fault. So.
Just make sure you use the code PHNX when you sign up at the DraftKings Sportsbook app. We are going to post our selections as a 4-part poll on PHNX_sports Twitter for you guys to vote on which player you think would make the best in each designated role. So you all can weigh in. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at PHNX_sports. Last week's episode was about rebranding the Arizona sports teams. And according to the people, they most would want to see the Cardinals rebrand to the Firebirds. So they won by 47% compared to the rest of our options. I thought the Diamondbacks rebranding to the Scorpions was going to win.
What were the other two?
It was either Diamondbacks going to Scorpions, Coyotes going to Roadrunners, Suns going to Wranglers, or the Cardinals going to Firebirds. And 47% of people said the Firebirds is the best rebrand.
Well, I disagree with the people, but I also say I do like the name Scorpions for a team here in the Valley.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I hate scorpions. So like having to see an actual scorpion
That's
on
right. They're
somebody's
disgusting,
jersey
repulsive
and stuff,
creatures.
I'm just like, I don't know about that one.
Well, maybe they could draw it in a way that is more appealing.
The Arizona Sting
Yeah,
was
they did
a
like
lacrosse
Sting.
team. They had an awesome logo.
Yeah, but it was lacrosse, so it was just kind of wasted. No
I
offense to Sting.
didn't know.
I didn't even know it was a team.
existed.
I've been to multiple Arizona Sting games.
Wow.
In my past.
They still exist?
In my past. I don't know if they do.
I don't even know if they exist. I don't think they do.
I don't know. It was years ago.
Yeah.
But that
More
was a cool.
lacrosse.
That was
Are we
cool.
offending people?
I don't know. Maybe. I'm sorry. If
I
you're an
feel
Arizona
like
Sting fan, I
lacrosse
apologize.
is an underrated sport, but it's just like you don't have access to it on like a
It was
general
huge.
setting,
I grew up in
so-
Ohio. It was really big in Ohio. It was like one of the most popular sports at my high school, and it was really big where I came from. I have not even heard the word lacrosse uttered here in Arizona, though.
Mhm.
And I've had 8 years that I've lived here, so.
There you have it. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Phoenix Sports Podcast. Like I mentioned, make sure to go follow us on Twitter at PHNX_sports so you can weigh in on our poll. If you haven't subscribed to GoPHNX.com yet, you must do so. We've got a ton of great content on there, written articles, exclusive video content. You can join the Discord and talk with all of us whenever you want. We're usually on the Discord, especially during game days, chiming in about games. So make sure you go subscribe to GoPHNX.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate subscriptions there, as well as the podcast wherever you are listening to this podcast. And we will see you next week.